it's time to go home. The dusty old MD hasn't exactly seen much usage recently, but, well, one gets a hankering. It's all quoting Cliff Richard, you know, talking about how it's so funny that we don't talk anymore and shit, asking when I'm actually going to review a frickin' Mega Drive game again. Because, you know, that's kinda my MO. It wants it, I want it, and I'm damn sure you people want it. So hey, why don't we just boot that Black Beauty right up into the Megasphere, huh? So what the fuck am I actually going to review? How about Battle Golfer Yuri? It's like a Japanese golf game with a big silly anime story where everybody dies at the end. I mean, I'd love to get right into that sort of plotline. Ah shit, there's a problem with that. I don't actually understand Japanese. Still, the golf's not bad, I guess. Yeah, some other time. Oh, I know, what about some Alien Storm? Let's do it. I'm sure I used to really enjoy this back in the day. Let's go. I guess my taste was never quite all that. Jeez, I'm stuck. No. At least not yet. Ah, now I do have it. Let's do some shooters. Yeah. I haven't really done many shooters back in the day either. And I love shooters. That almighty rush as you protect the skies, one ship against thousands, an army of frickin' one. That, like any good army of one, dies and dies again. I can't do just one though, so screw it. Top 10 it is. That's a license to print bison dollars if ever there was one. So what the hell am I continuing this stupid inner monologue for? Let's count this shit down. My top 10 Mega Drive shoot 'em ups coming at you right now. Commence operation. We start with Gynoug Masaya, also known as Winds of War, depending on where you're at. It's a pretty cool game by Masaya where you play as an angel fighting off various demons and the like. While there is actually a bit more variation in this list than just plain games that occur in space, it is nice to see something different like this. Gynoug has a very nice, somewhat muted art style and some nice music to boot. I mean, when it comes to shooters based on ancient Greek sort of mythos, you've basically got this and you've got Philios, and Philios is kinda lame. As far as the actual shooting goes, it's a nice sort of medium hot dish. It's not incredibly hard, but it'll give you a pretty rough ride in the later stages. I can usually ride to around about stage 3 on a single credit. There's the odd rather cool weapon here and there to boot. You can stock up on them and use them as you go. Bit of peace in mind when it comes to bosses. The only real problem with this one is that the stages are kinda long, and while the style of the game is pretty solid, it's perhaps not quite strong enough for the stages to not just outstay their welcome from time to time. But aside from that, Gynoug is a solid way to kick things off, and in fact it's a pretty solid entry game to Mega Drive shooters in general. Now you might have been expecting to see this one a lot higher, mightn't you? I can hear all the keyboards clacking now, wondering why Thunder Force 4 is only at number 9, because most would say that this is easily the Mega Drive's best shmup. And don't get me wrong, I think it's pretty great. The music is some of the best flat-out rock you'll hear from the FM chip, such a vicious guitar sound and quite simply the most ridiculous video game bass. It's always nice when the composer sticks a bass line in that would require the hands of a mechanised Victor Wooten in order to pull off. The graphics are stark raving bonkers, so much glorious parallax, all the wonderful surroundings, whether it's a sandstorm or the middle of a space battle. Technically this game is flat out amazing. But in the end, I just don't get on all that well with it, or frankly any Thunder Force game. I guess I'm just awful at them. Even Thunder Force 3. I can recall an episode of GameSack where Joe said that Thunder Force 3 was so damn easy, the easiest of the easy shoot-em-ups ever. And all I could think of was that it wasn't bloody easy for me now, was it? Memories. Sad. Of course, there's nothing easy about Thunder Force 4. It's extremely tough for anybody, and it'll beat you up pretty handily if you put even the slightest foot wrong. Maybe, I don't know, perhaps it's a little too busy? The graphics are so insane that sometimes I struggle to tell what the hell's even going on. And then I get killed. Repeatedly. I mean, could I possibly say that this is bad? As flashy as a shooter might want to look, I'd much rather be able to actually see what's going on. but I get so distracted by all the pretty things going on that I just die again and again. I've never got past the opening stages. Well, that's my excuse anyway, and I'm sticking to it. Thunder Force 4 certainly deserves respect, and it's by far my favourite of the series, but yeah, I prefer quite a few other Mega Drive shooters to it, and I don't quite think it's the absolute red baron of the console it's usually purported to be. Oh, but wait a second. Before you go ahead and flame away, why don't I just give you even more reasons to get annoyed? Because if Thunder Force 4 isn't number one, surely M.U.S.H.A would be, right? It's a gem, one of the MD's most expensive titles, and that's pretty much based entirely on its quality. Just about any time some YouTube reviewer mentions this game, you know, you can just feel free to stick another 20 or so quid onto its value. And yet, on my list, it's only number 8. Again, it's an utterly breathtaking game to look at. Compile gave the game this fantastic feudal Japanese Noh theatre sheen, setting it apart from just about everything else looks-wise, and the music is even more rocking than the tunes in Thunder Force 4. The music for the first level, Full Metal Fighter, is just about the most insane, breakneck piece of rocking out you'll ever hear from the Mega Drive, and it only gets heftier from there. So yeah, the game certainly deserves all the love when you just look at it. For me though, I do actually find the shooting a teensy bit unsatisfying, like the game's too easy. Infinite Continues obviously helps, but once you get your freeway on, you seem to kill basically everything on the screen before they even get a chance to wipe their feet. When I first played M.U.S.H.A, I was utterly amazed by it. The music, graphics, everything just blew me away. I was also shocked that it came out in 1990. It's a pretty early title for the system, but it looks like it could have come out in like 1994. But after playing it in a bit more detail, for all of its good looks, I get a lot more fun out of less impressive looking but much punchier shooters. Also, I think Compile made better, more challenging shooters than this one. Space Megaforce, blazing lasers, yeah, I kinda prefer them. As horrifying a thought as it may be to prefer a SNES shooter to a Mega Drive one. Still, it wouldn't be on the list if it wasn't bloody good. Maybe I just want to highlight some other games for a change. Let them get the spotlight, let them get the value boost. Anyway, controversy over. Now you can go ahead and get your flame. Or just hear the rest of the entries. You're cool. Next up we have one of the earliest Mega Drive shooters, Truxton, all the way from 1989. It's one of the more well-known ones too, I guess, being a conversion of a classic coin-op by Toaplan. Truxton was called Tatsujin in Japan, which literally translates to expert. So yeah, you can kinda guess what you're dealing with here. It's an uncomplicated, classic space shooter that's really, really frickin' hard. Do you need anything more? In the glory days you could tell just who was into their Truxton. That 1,000-yard stare, the unsmiling face, the quick reflex elbow to the thorax the second anyone so much as put a hand on their shoulder. You weren't there, man. You weren't there. Those laserhead junkies, well, never stood a chance. Okay, maybe I'm over-egging this a bit. What I'm saying is that Truxton's sorta difficult. It's fun to try and beat, though. Like a lot of Toaplan games, you get a good long power-up system that results in very memorable weapons, including a glorious electric deathray, something that just about any great shooter needs in my opinion. You also have one of the most iconic shooter bombs, the giant frickin' Skullhead Mega Blast. And you get some pretty whacked out music too. It's not the best music on here, but I do quite like the crazed hammering organ sound the game uses. It's suitably spacey in a 60s driving movie kind of way. All that said, I do sorta suck at the game, and it doesn't really help that, unlike most of the games here, I'm playing this on emulation with a busted D-pad. But then it was perhaps destined for around this position anyway. As good a no-frills shooter as this game is, Toaplan eventually perfected this formula, and we'll see another example of that later on. But as one of the first shooters to come out on the Mega Drive, if not the first full stop, Truxton set the bar pretty damn high. You knew from this game on, right from the get-go, that there was going to be a lot of spread bullet fun on this machine. Sticking with space, here's another quite well-loved shooter with a name that's hard to pronounce. Telenet's Gaiares has a lot going for it. There's cool-looking enemies, a unique powering-up system, and some of the best music on the Mega Drive. One thing it certainly doesn't have going for it though is plot. Like most space shooters, you just get straight on with blasting and that's it. The trouble with this approach comes when said game needs to be advertised, and in the case of Gaiares, the bots at Renovation thought that this would make a good ad campaign. This is, Mr. Renovation Man, I guess, ready to tell you all about how awesome Gaiares is through the power of his mullet alone. Now, I know this is kind of an overused phrase in retrovid stuff, but, well, what the fuck were they thinking? When you have to resort to sticking gamers front and centre on your posters, well, you know you've got a pretty dodgy marketing team. Surprisingly, Mr. Renovation Man's mullet didn't do a great job of selling Gaiares to the public, and the game is kind of obscure as a result, but well loved by those who know it. And they are right, for it is pretty damn good. I happen to agree. Gaiares does have a particularly neat system by which you grab enemies and take power-ups out of them like some sort of crazy flying robo-vampire. It's sort of hard to learn because you're never quite sure at first which enemies are going to give you what, and some of the weapons are quite shockingly awful, but it's not something I've ever seen replicated, and it means that there's plenty of variety. Other than that, you know, you've got all the things you'd want in a space shooter. You can adjust your speed, you can fly around and kill enemies, and you can listen to some cracking music. The Stage 1 theme is one of the best pieces of music composed for the Mega Drive, full stop. Which is a good thing, because, you know, you're probably going to be hearing it a lot. I'll be honest, the reason why this game isn't higher is because I'm absolutely terrible at it, and I've never even been able to get past the second stage. It's probably the hardest game in the top 10, certainly up there with Truxton and Thunder Force 4. Mainly, you know, because it does the whole fucking Gradius thing of using checkpoints and reducing your ship to nothing when you die. But as much as I can whine and kvetch about that, the reason it's not any higher is because I'm shit. I imagine this game would probably make top 5, maybe even top 3 in most other people's lists, but not mine. Oh well, just have to live with that. On to the top 5. Oh yeah, it's the game with that famous intro. For great justice, main screen turn on, all your bass and all of that. Zero Win's hilarious, badly translated intro made the game somewhat infamous in the early 2000s, which was kind of weird for me because I was rather surprised to see this game that I'd played loads when I was a kid, a game that nobody else I knew had even heard of, suddenly hit the spotlight because of its very silly intro. And yeah, I was laughing at Katz's No Chance to Survive Make Your Time way before it was cool. So who wants to touch me, huh? No one? Fine. Anyway, the logic tends to go that if Zero Win has this really bad intro, therefore it must also be a really bad game. Which is kind of a shame, as it's actually a very good shooter indeed. Zero Win is generally cool for various reasons. I love the tractor pull that always gives you a makeshift shield or just something to chuck at enemies willy-nilly. I like that it has a bit of an R-type element, with careful navigation occasionally required rather than just blasting enemies. And the music is, once again, fantastic, and actually a bit unheralded compared to some of the other games here. A lot of the games here do have kick-ass music, but Zero Win is right up with the best of them in places. And it will give you a fight to boot. Like most Toaplan games, it sure as shit ain't no picnic. You'll even have to go around it multiple times in order to actually get the proper finish. Zero Win is a great all-rounder, and it'd be even higher if it wasn't for the old, irritating conceit of taking away all your fucking power-ups when you die, as well as often leaving you with awful checkpoints where you'll just die again and again. You know what people say is unfair about Gradius when they really meant to say what's utterly awful about Gradius. Still, despite committing this particular crime, Zero Win is great, and deserves to be known for way more than a badly translated intro. Mind you, it's still jolly funny. Glaylancer also features a lengthy intro, but the game never left Japan, and this is merely a fan translation. So alas, nothing to laugh at here. It is at the least a well-produced intro, and a neat attempt to give a bit of a story to the game. And hey, if we really want to break it all down, it is a reverse damsel in distress. The father's ship gets kidnapped, and his daughter Lucia, a mere ensign, takes over the big prototype ship in order to rescue him. So you know, that's a pretty neat subversion of the usual trope from hundreds of other game stories. On the other hand, I think I now realise why this game might have not come out in the West. Of course, this is a shooter in the end, and so it's all about the action, baby. There's ships that need blowing up and damn the motivation. And when it comes to action, Gaiares is pretty top notch and well deserving of the top 5. It might seem a little basic on the outside, because there's all the usual weapons, the usual enemies, the usual space, I'm in space. There's, not much variations on the norm. But it does actually have a very nice control scheme. There's loads of variations in the movers, which is the game's fancy name for the options you have at your side. They can do back shots, they can roll, they can home in on enemies, just go all out, or follow you religiously. Plenty of different ways to play. I tend to go for the normal option where they follow my direction, but they can be locked in with the C button. It's a cool control system that takes a bit of skill to learn properly, which is all very well because you're gonna need it. Gaiares is the sort of shooter that sends shit flying at you from all directions. There are few things more unnerving in video games than a horizontal shooter in which you suddenly find yourself going up. On the whole, it's not super hard, and I'm usually able to reach about the 5th stage on 1 credit, but the challenge here is just right. There's definitely enough to keep any freeway junkie or laserhead interested. It's an obscure and kind of expensive game, but Gaiares is really damn good and very much worth checking out. Another entry, another game that sadly didn't leave Japan. The West did get Victor Kai's first Battle Mania game under the name Troubleshooter, but the sequel was, 100 times better. And most of us, we never saw it. Battle Mania Daiginjou is one thoroughly kick-ass shooter, with your typical Victor Kai spin. You know that the graphics are going to be pretty good, that the soundtrack's going to be great, and that there's going to be a slight touch of kookiness and irreverence about the whole thing. Victor Kai's games aren't always winners, but when they hit, they really pull it off. Here you get to play as 2 women named Mania and Maria, who quite simply are going to kick the ass of all the bad people in the world. Together! Because of friendship! There's lots of neat cutscenes in between the levels to boot, and some of them are actually kinda funny, believe it or not. The game itself is a lot like Capcom's Forgotten Worlds, only sprinkled with glitter and a hell of a lot better. Our 2 heroes deliver punishment either back to back or from the front. There's various ways to control Mania, but I prefer the 8-way option. Holding the B button down allows you to strafe and whatnot, but you can release it and switch directions. Pretty neat, allows for a lot of freedom. It's a very satisfying game to play on the whole, and easily the best of its type, even if its only competition is the aforementioned Forgotten Worlds. But it's also very charming and a load of fun in general, with some thoroughly un-Western touches to boot. I mean, I'm pretty damn sure that Mania says shit whenever she takes a hit. It's a bloody good game and a joy to play no matter how you look at it. And, if you've got £100 or so to spare, then pick it up immediately. Or just get it booted on your EverDrive or whatever. God sends that those things are. And in the runners-up position, we've got Elemental Master, another gem from the golden year of 1990. Nearly half of the shooters on this list are from that year alone. It also means that even if Thunder Force underperformed on this list, Technosoft still have a shooter up really damn high, for they were excellent. And this, for me, is their best. Unlike the other games on this list, Elemental Master is a walk-in shoot-'em-up, like Commando or Ikari Warriors. Now, I'm actually not a massive fan of this sort of game usually, but Elemental Master pulls it off thanks to flat-out speed and actually having a few different options. A good weapon selection, some charge shots, other neat power-ups. It doesn't feel at all cumbersome. And in that respect, I guess it's a lot like Cave's M.U.S.H.A, doing something a bit outside of the norm in what's normally a pretty basic field. It has all the extras you could want as well. Another lengthy intro, a neat fantasy art style with some absolutely beautiful stages, particularly when you start getting deep into things like the Ice Palace and what have you. And again, you've got music to die for. Less rockier than some of the other games on here, Elemental Master goes a bit more proggy. Some of the parts honestly sound like primo War of the Worlds type stuff, like it was played by Rick Wakeman atop a mountain in a shiny gold Merlin hat. Of course, you would expect no less from Technosoft. This is what they do, you know? And yeah, it doesn't get in the way so much for me this time. And thankfully, I don't suck at this game either, so I don't have any hang-ups about appreciating all the really good shit that it does. A game like this shows just how awesome the variety of shooting was on the MD. A lot of people would probably pick something like the PC Engine as the best shooter console of all time, and they'd certainly have a good case, but the MD's got to be up there too for me. Of all the many flourishes here, in a list where at least 3 games had a decent chance of being number 1, Elemental Master came so damn close and on another day could have easily taken the prize. However, after playing all of these games for the list, well, another game stood out. So, what else is left? Let's see what's on top of the high score table. Holy shit. Now you're fucking talking. It is of course very nice to have a neat plot or some funny cutscenes. I wouldn't have a go at a game for sticking a few little cherries on top unless they'd pissed on them beforehand. But sometimes you just want a total no-frills shooter, and for that there is nothing better on the Mega Drive than this. This is Fireshark, it's a Toaplan game, here's a plane, go blow holes in things. What more do you need? This is the sort of game that sticks you right on the left ventricle of what's so bloody fun about playing games in the first place. Shoot straight, don't stop moving, only bomb when you're in trouble, and for fuck's sake don't die. That's all you need to know. Now of course there's plenty of other shooters I could have chosen for this purpose. This could have been Truxton on another day maybe. But what makes Fireshark the best one? That's tricky to put a finger on, but I guess it helps that I do rather well with it. I can usually either complete the game or at least get very far on a single credit, and you know, that's gonna mean something. It's got a lovely long power-up chain. It might take a couple of levels to do it, but it's so satisfying to just see a weedy little laser evolve into the almighty Sister Deathray from hell. Of course you're still aware at all times that one little slip-up could take you all the way back to nothing again. And if that happens you can actually try and do it all over again. Fireshark does take away your power-ups, and it does use checkpoints, and God knows I've been nasty about that throughout the whole list. But they're actually well implemented here. Even when I do die, I still feel like if I play well, I have a fighting chance. It's nothing like the sort of unfair die once game over shit you see in something like Radius. A game of Fireshark is just filled with ups and downs, so much drama. Sometimes you start terribly, limping through the first stage, down to 1 life by stage 2, and then you turn it around and go on a big one, go stage after stage without losing a life, equip the Deathray, just get in that sort of gaming zone. It all turns on a sixpence, it really does. It's quite simply all about your skill, staying the course to get the victory, and that is what I absolutely love about Fireshark, and why it ended up beating a whole load of much fancier, much better looking, and much more in-depth shooters to reach the number 1 spot. You can preen and flourish all you want, but this, it just gets shit done. One of the absolute go-to games for me to just boot up and lose myself in. As far as shooters go, it's definitive. A clear guide to everything that is so brilliant about the whole genre. And well, there you have it. A list that I've wanted to do for a long time. There's just nothing but the great and the good in this list, and I hope that this has shown you just how awesome the Mega Drive is when it comes to purely untactical explosive action. There's no specific game on this list you should even play above all else. Just sit your ass down and hit all of them up. Just hit up all of them. And yeah, if you've been waiting for some good old-fashioned Kimble Justice Mega Drive video fun, well, I hope this has given you a nice little dose. First one might be free, but well, you'll be back for more. That's what a shooter fan always desires, you know, because it's just such a glorious rush at its best, gaming at its finest. So, why don't you hook yourself up with some of it today? Go now, and go play. And with that, it's time to end the video. Thanks for watching, and wherever you are, whoever you be, have a good one, take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.